Talking college sports in the Deep South, where college football is king and the battle cry on the plains of Auburn is War Eagle. Once again, it is K-Stu, the GOAT for Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn, and we're talking about Auburn in the month of June. We're already midway through June and highly anticipating the Advocare Classic. I'm going to do a video on the most impactful players for Auburn for 2019. One of the players, I'll go ahead and give a sneak preview on that, is Derrick Brown. I feel like Derrick Brown absolutely has to have an incredibly breakout season for the Tigers and solidify his leadership and his legacy as an Auburn Tiger. Derrick Brown came to Auburn in 2016, started out at least as a contributor that year, recording 3 solo tackles, having 11 total. 1.5 tackles for a loss and 1 sack. Derrick Brown ended the 2018 season as an all-SEC defensive lineman, and all indications showed that Derrick Brown would actually declare for the NFL draft, and it would have been rightfully so, as in 2017 for Derrick Brown, you talk about statistically, had 9.5 tackles for a loss and 3 sacks, 57 total tackles in that interior defensive line for the Auburn Tigers. That has absolutely been the mainstay, especially since Kevin Steele's arrival in 2016. Now, you look at breakout performances for the Auburn Tigers, and you just have to mention Nick Fairley for the Tigers back in the day. Back in 2010. Now, Nick Fairley came to Auburn as a junior college transfer back in 2009, had a somewhat similar first year of what Derrick Brown had. But remember, he had already had experience in the junior college ranks. But, you look at Nick Fairley's senior year for the Auburn Tigers, absolutely phenomenal. 60 total tackles, 24 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks, and 1 interception, which this was some production that led to a national championship appearance and win for the Auburn Tigers, ironically against Oregon, who Auburn will play the first game of this year. We talk about Derrick Brown. He has had a great career at Auburn. But 2019 is the year for Derrick Brown to solidify himself as an Auburn great. You talk about Nick Fairley, a Lombardi winner his senior year, a first-round draft pick, 24 tackles for loss, an absolute beast on the defensive line for the Auburn Tigers. This defense in 2010 did not move unless Nick Fairley said so. You talk about the Alabama game in 2010 where things seemed to be falling apart. Late in the first half, Nick Fairley really showed his dominance in forcing a fumble on McElroy and then coming to make the recovery on the fumble. Also, earlier in that particular game, Nick Fairley had a very crucial tackle, but it was penalized for overly excessive celebration. Now, if we remember, Nick Fairley was under constant scrutiny by the referees. I mean, Nick Fairley, if he smiled too hard, he was getting a penalty. But what we need out of Derrick Brown is that same level of dominance. He has been a very good football player. If he leaves Auburn and does similar to what he has already done, he will leave Auburn as a good defensive lineman. But if he can have the stats senior year like Nick Fairley had, 24 tackles for a loss, 10 plus sacks, we're talking about one of the best defensive linemen in Auburn history, winning a Lombardi Award. Heck, if he could throw in an interception with that, would be beautiful for Derrick Brown. Now, As we talk about impact players for the Auburn Tigers on defense, especially with the linebacker position, being so inexperienced, it's going to be paramount that Derrick Brown has a stellar season for the Auburn Tigers. We saw shades of this in the spring football game. All of us watched the spring football game from 2019 this year. The defense came out playing flat for the first couple of drives, and then Derrick Brown comes in, and he literally takes over in Nick Fairley-ish fashion to show that he is the leader of this particular defense for the Auburn Tigers coming into 2019. That level of intensity definitely has to carry over into the Evercare Classic, as Auburn is going to be facing a huge offensive line for Oregon. And disruption is going to be key. Derrick Brown is going to have a very, very good game in this particular matchup in order for Auburn to have a chance against Oregon. What does Derrick Brown has to do? First of all, he has to provide the leadership that we feel at this point in his career he can provide. Because if you think about it, he's been protected pretty much throughout his career. He's had Deshaun Davis. He's had, Montavious Atkinson. He's had, Trey Matthews, Carlton Davis, Dontavius Russell has been security blankets for Derrick Brown throughout his career. And he has performed very well. But now, when you talk about the legacy of Derrick Brown and the future for the Auburn Tigers in 2019, it rests in large part on the shoulders of Derrick Brown. If this defense is going to live up to being one of the top defenses in the country, Derrick Brown is going to have a lot to say about that coming into 2019. What do we need from Derrick Brown? Constant pressure up the middle. The continuous, where teams cannot run up the middle. Providing that leadership, providing that intensity to get this defense going. This defense, I feel, is poised to have statistically one of the top defenses in the country. Even with time of possession being a factor, for the past few years, Auburn has not allowed any more than 20 points per game. Last year, only 3 quarterbacks threw for 300-plus yards against Auburn. Mississippi State had the most success running the football against Auburn with a senior dual-threat quarterback in Nick Fitzgerald. So we're talking about the 2019 season for the Auburn Tigers and where this thing begins and ends. It begins at the line of scrimmage because that's where the most experience is for the Auburn Tigers. And Derrick Brown is right there in the middle. What if he doesn't even have to have 24 tackles for a loss? If he could have 15 and then team that up with the 8 sacks and having a dominant presence as he has shown shades of throughout his career. Once again, it's Case to the GOAT for Vernon Speaks Sports. Please subscribe to this channel. Comment your comments in the comment section. Like this video. You all have a great day. And once again, War Eagle.